All right, welcome to another Barron Street Research Technical Analysis. Well, I guess there's gonna be a bit of fundamental analysis too, and we're actually in my Trade Alts Discord though. Little strange setup today, but I wanted to go over some charts. And Tig has some stocks that he wanted to go over that he was interested in. I think he has some stuff to say about. Um, I just figured like I would lead off very quickly because this to me is like extremely important. And as far as like you guys who are in VC right now with me and kind of like my thoughts on current market conditions. I mean, I've said my stuff in Discord, but I thought I would kind of reiterate it here. And kind of the news flash is it's not the best. So I mean, I'm just starting. I already have Nasdaq futures up right now, and you can see like you don't need to be a genius to see that. Like we've broke this 6 month range that we've basically been in, and now kind of looking for a bit of downside. And the thing is, the last 4 Mondays have actually been good. They've been now. If you look at these are weekly candles. Obviously, they're not good, but well, they're not good if you're bullish, is what I would say. But the Mondays themselves have been actually very good. So the last four prior Mondays, we've seen green days on stocks. Today ain't looking like it's gonna finish that way. We have about we have an hour left or whatever, and it's looking to kind of um, maybe break the 4 Mondays of green. And kind of like what I would say about this is, and something that we're going to be watching is on ES here. This is a weekly time frame. Um, I don't know if you guys remember me talking about the liquidity index indicator that I created a while ago. And it's something that, like that I've been monitoring, and these signals don't, I mean, they take a long time to develop. So I just want to double check. You guys can see this chart totally fine, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, cool. I did. Yeah, it looks good on there as well. So I just wanted to make sure. But this is the liquidity index that I created a while ago, and I was telling you guys that like when this signal flashes, it's definitely something to pay a lot of attention to. So like just here on ES, you can see we're on this red diamond, which by the way, this red diamond is flashing right now. The last time the red diamond um happened was right here on this candle. So you can see we made another new high actually, just very slightly, but then we had a very significant corrective move. And I just I mean, from the top of this down to your low, it was a 27% move. But if you take it kind of like where this candle happened here, which I'm just going to use the base on when it started, it was still 20, 23, 24% move to the downside. It's definitely something to pay attention to. So like this is the last time that this signal fired. And then here when you got your green diamond, which basically is kind of like I want to make sure that's actually lined up properly. It's here. You can see like we got obviously it was the end of this corrective move, and that's a significant move to the downside obviously. And then it was literally from this point on, it was you had a really nice time in in markets. And now the way that I would look at this is, again, like I'm waiting. There's still 3 days, 19 hours before this confirms, and I want to wait for this candle close to confirm. But what I do think something similar could happen to this last reading is that like you get your signal confirmed, but then we actually get like a little bit of a rally, right? I don't necessarily, like, I do not think that with current market conditions, as long and here's the thing, like kind of the linchpin in this for me is Iran. Like as long as Iran is a factor, as long as the straits close, as long as like we don't have any significant fundamental changes in what's going on over in the Middle East right now, I do not expect much good to come from that. Is kind of like the short story of this. But what I do think could happen, and what would be nice in terms of a potential trade, is that we get the signal to confirm this week, and then maybe next week or the week after, kind of like here, like it took again another month but we did ultimately make a slightly new high before we had like a real significant move here. And I mean, this could be wishful thinking, but I think, what would be what would be like something on my radar to watch is for the signal to confirm, and then maybe we get a little bit of relief, right? But to me, again, as long as nothing is changing, I mean, it seems like things are like continuing to escalate even, but like as long as there's no like material, like significant improvement in what's happening in the Middle East, I think that we're likely to continue to see what we've been seeing since it started, and that's been, price moving lower. So again, liquidity index. This was like I saw this. I posted as soon as I saw it in Discord, but I thought it was very important that I actually get on a video and kind of again like talk about like just to just kind of show like that things are unraveling. You could say that. Um, and in terms of like I just had to move this screen over real fast. Basically, so again, like and this is like, I'm just gonna, and I'll show you Nasdaq too. That way you can see Nasdaq and you see it's the same thing. So we're also, it's like very similar thing. Charts look pretty similar, but it's flashing the same signal there as well. So take a bite of yogurt. Hold on a second. Trying to multitask there. Again, in terms of liquidity index, and why like liquidity is moving lower at kind of like this rapid rate, right? Pre-Iran, things were okay. Like across the board, there were some things here and there, but like as far as like macro perspective goes, like things were relatively okay. There wasn't any like major catalysts that were coming like right away, I guess you could say, that were like would cause us to have like a significant move down. Like Iran is a big part of this. But in terms of like my liquidity index in particular, I know I don't want to spend too much time covering everything that like what goes into this particular index, but again, reasons why you're seeing lower. The dollar's bullish, bond volatility, equity volatility is bullish, VIX is bullish. When you have those conditions, liquidity is going to go down. Like that's just how it works. Um, and this is what we're seeing. And I think like why we're seeing like the signal flash kind of where it is that like things are unraveling, again, in a relatively quick, quick manner. Again, for the market, a month and a half, 2 months is actually like pretty fast. And I don't think really like the market is fully appreciating or like fully like pricing in kind of like all of this potential stuff that's happening in a nutshell. I'm not gonna talk forever about that. And Tick and I had a conversation. We probably had a friggin' 15-20 minute conversation before we even jumped on here, which we probably should have just recorded that part. I know we always do that. Um, where I like talked about my positioning, why I think, he talked about his positioning and why he thinks, it's like we should have like
We should
literally.
just record all of our conversations.
I know we should have like that was anyway. But so anyway, like when money's missing, like liquidity going down. When money's missing, you see like when you see people panic selling gold, sovereign wealth funds, et cetera, like they're the ones that are buying tech stocks and U.S. private credit, like keeping these afloat, right? Like helping to kind of like keep things moving forward. And when they're not getting, again, when you have like disruptions, like we're having like severe energy disruptions, which you're seeing across like global energy disruptions right now. I mean, I know where I live, gas is 5.20 a gallon or something. I passed by today, which I just like, to me that's the most I've ever paid in my life. Not even I know other places have paid more, obviously, but like it's hitting the globe pretty hard right now. And if they're not getting the money they need to keep hitting the bid, then you're seeing what you see. And you see liquidity leaving, you see stocks moving lower. It's kind of anyway, I won't talk too much more about that. But anyway, bottom line, not looking great. And if this conflict isn't resolved in a material way very soon, I think these drawdowns that we're looking at here are going to get worse, and like a fair amount worse. So I think this is actually your high. Look, future Nasdaq already down over 12%. So we're already in correction territory, right? But I do think so, again, by 20% is basically your bear market, right? When like the definition of getting into a bear market is 10% correction, 20% bear market. If this isn't materially resolved in the next month and a half, something like that, um, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see us down here, to see us probing some of these lower levels, in stocks. Which again today, geez, we're down at another 1% here. So anyway, that's my look. That's kind of like my base case for everything else that I'm going to talk about, which is why I wanted to go over it today. And again, for those of you in VIP who are in here with me right now, like this is like I've been saying, it's been time to pay attention. It's really time to pay attention. This isn't time to like have your head buried in sand. And this is very likely, again, like this is like at the forefront of kind of like everything that's happening right now. But my message to you is it can get a lot worse. So don't get complacent. This is definitely a time to pay attention to what's happening. So anyway, that's as much time as I'm going to spend on ES and Nasdaq, just because like we have a lot of other things that I know Tig wants to get into. And this is probably going to be. I am going to Asia tomorrow night, like so. I am flying out. I'm going to be there for a few weeks, so I won't be. I mean, I'll have my computer with me, and I could probably jump on a like emergency stream if I need to. I have no idea like how good the all the Wi-Fi etc. is going to be there. I'll see when I get there. But if it's not so bad, maybe I can do some streams from there. That'll be fine. But and you guys again in VIP know when I travel, things tend to change a lot, and this is kind of like it's not anyway. There's a lot happening in the world right now. So on again, one thing that I would say from a bullish perspective, and this is purely technicals, this is not fundamental anything else that's going on, it's just from a technical standpoint, is I would pay a lot of attention to this range, right? This range that we've been in. If you see kind of this acceptance back in here, yes, I do think that we could have kind of that rally that I'm talking about. And what I would like to see, again, going back to this, is seeing this signal confirm here, and then maybe we get a little bit of a bounce off of that. And I think that bounce though, likely to be pretty trappy. That's my guess, my initial thought. I think if the signal confirms, this high is very likely it. Like it, and in before we see, I wouldn't be shocked if we see 20% or lower in terms of like from your high to your low. Like seeing a much, seeing like a much larger kind of correction, and then maybe we resume from there. But like for me, all I'm really focusing on is kind of like the next few months. And again, to summarize it, if we don't see any material change over the next 30 to 45 days, something like that, I think we're going to be visiting some lower levels. So yeah, this range still very relevant to me. And this is kind of like something that I will be paying attention to, even maybe some kind of a back test. So this is like scenario one, right? Maybe as far as like looking for maybe like a larger rally up into maybe like your range EQ, something like that, before seeing a deeper pullback. That's kind of like what I would be watching here. Or like if we do probe a bit lower, and then maybe we come up and we just kind of test the underside of this, confirm its resistance, and then head lower. That's kind of like two things that I would watch. That's all I'm gonna say. Anybody have any questions about ES, Nasdaq, stocks? We're gonna get into some individual stocks in a minute. But man, this right here is something I've been waiting for, and I can't ignore it, And again, like maybe like the thing is there's not like there's not like a ton of iterations of this, right? So it's just like this to me is just, it's not the Bible, it's not the end all be all. But it is very like it's telling of like where we are. Um so yeah. And yeah, so DJ, he said I don't trade NQ, but I think it's valuable info for others. Like I would, yes. The thing is, if NQ is unraveling drastically, right, it's going to affect everything else. Like that's so like this is like a really good is basically to like this is gonna affect everything else. So it's a really good one to pay attention to. So I'll let you take over. or at least give me where you want to focus next, and then kind of we'll see what we can get
Yeah.
through.
So I guess I got like a good little list here. These are names that I'm either watching or in various stages of research. Um, but I thought they were, some of them are interesting, some of them are kind of popular on social media, um, and relevant right now. So the first one is ONDS,
Sorry,
Ondas.
I want to get on. I don't know if I should do it on Barron Street. I don't have anything set up for some reason. ONDS. I feel like I have that one, but I'm not sure. Let me see. It's gonna take me too long. Oh, I don't. All right. It's down
So this
massively
one
today.
is,
So
yeah, it's down huge. So this one is like a industrial wireless network protection and like drone technology company. They own um, a bunch of, I guess, startups in that space. It's been overvalued, just because the whole drone thing has been in the news and in the markets since the whole Ukraine thing started. And I don't know, the people that are paying attention to war, this drone technology and all the jammers and all the stuff going on. It's pretty crazy, and it's kind of revolutionizing war. You have Anduril, um, that's kind of a player in there. You got AVAV. So that, there's definitely some companies that have done well. This one has obviously done well until recently. Um, so really for this one, just trying to kind of get a sense of, where the potential buy areas might be. Um,
you want the good news or the
and
bad news? I'm just kidding. Wanted to say
yeah, this is,
that.
I don't own this, and this is one of
Really?
those where you're like hoping that it goes down a lot, and then it gets into an area where it actually is interesting.
Yeah.
So
So interesting enough, for again, those of you guys are here with me, you won't be that surprised to probably find out. Um, which I kind of like drew a few of these, but which maybe I should have done them one at a time now that I'm thinking about it. But like just on this last leg here, okay, which is why I love equities. But like low, high, golden pocket. Really nice bounce, by the way. Like this is a decent bounce. Um, this is a decent bounce. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what I want to be measuring. From here to here, I mean, that's a 42% bounce. Okay. So, like, really nice bounce. Unfortunately, you're rolling over and you're coming down to lower levels. Kind of like, I would say, like, the next area of interest. Like, if I was to, now this is going to get really messy. So, I apologize, but I am looking for, so you're basically at like a 50% retrace right now. Um, I don't see anything like overly exciting. Your yearly pivots at 734 and you're almost there. Like, is you going to hit that? Probably. Like, seems very likely. Things down 11% today. Um, you know, high, low, almost got your 618 right here. High, low, just front ran your 618 before rolling over. That would have, obviously been too bad of a trade if you caught that. Your 1-to-1 off of this is putting you around 5, kind of like back around near these lows. I would say like initially, like my quick thought and see kind of what this looks like. So yeah, I mean you're at and currently slightly below your equilibrium for this move. Daily is gonna look a lot worse. Um yeah, this is not good. Like this is it's not good. Um actually did it like a decent kind of like a decent job. Decent job trying to. full cloud. Um, yeah, I don't know. For me, lower. I think like your yearly pivot around 734, it's kind of near where your 786 is, where you had like a really nice reaction off this golden pocket. So like I wouldn't just immediately dismiss this 716, 734 region. But yeah, I don't know. This looks pretty bad. The one to one off of this, kind of like I would maybe put back at kind of like your macro value area low here, somewhere in that region. I don't have like an immense strong feeling about this yet. It just it looks this looks pretty
Yeah.
bearish. This looks pretty bad.
I'd say like for
Um
this one, the best I'd wait till like the $5 range because it's
yeah.
it's kind of like a roll up, and for anyone that knows stocks, like basically they've acquired several companies in the space to kind of get it all, to kind of consolidate the industry because it's there's tons of drone startups, and so it makes sense. But whenever you buy a bunch of companies, like it never really works out right away. It takes time to integrate everything, and so it seems to me like the $5 range is kind of the spot.
Just trying to look at like some other levels really quick to see like if anything like interesting lines up with any of this. And yeah, I mean this one's kind of a little harder. Like I'm not gonna lie, like this one's kind of a little bit harder. I mean, I do think that this looks pretty not good here. And like, do I think that it's going to like look? I mean, I think if you lose your pivot, then yes, I do think it's like pretty like I do think it's pretty good probability that you'll see a fair bit lower on this. But what I would say is like I don't know. This is like one that we could keep tabs on. And I just don't see any like in
It's
terms
an
of like a
interesting company.
long, right? In terms of like
Sure.
looking for a long here, this is not like I don't really see much. Maybe you could like try to like draw something roughly from here. In terms of like maybe like a potential trend line that actually lines up pretty well right here. I wouldn't put like a ton of in terms of like confluence, I would say this is probably weak, but that is kind of like how I would draw this trend line to like come back to revert to kind of like this trend line here, which does put you at $5. So um yeah, I don't know.
I like it. I like it.
Uh, like
Go to the next.
the overall 618, by the way, and I'm drawing a lot of these, but this is a pretty important one is here. So like depending how long this takes, right? So if this is like pushing into like second quarter, like like May, June-ish or something, like if this kind of chops around, maybe this kind of comes into contact with this trend line, and then maybe like on a like a lower time frame pivot, see like your S1. Okay, so like this is actually starting to take a bit of shape. I don't want to spend too much more time here, but your S1 quarterly pivot is literally sitting in your golden pocket, which by the way, you only have like 37 minutes left on this. So you're gonna have to like, we're gonna get new quarterly pivots tomorrow. But I'm just saying, it's like, there's like you'd want to. This is probably one I'd want to revisit later. And like, honestly, a lot of these, obviously, every pivot, quarterly level is going to be changing. But I'm just saying, not much time left. But yeah. All right. What's the next one? Is it CF?
Yeah, sure. CF.
So this one I do have.
Yeah, yeah. We talked about this one a
I
couple
don't know
weeks ago, I
where.
think, or maybe just you and I talked about it. But it's a fertilizer company.
Yeah, we did.
Um, Basically, everybody
Oh, I remember
knows.
this one. Yeah, we
Yeah,
it was
big.
literally on this break. Remember?
Yeah, it
It
was like
was
$100.
it was literally yeah.
When
Oh,
we were
here.
talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it.
It was. We were talking
Yeah,
about this. Um.
and yeah, so they have issues with the strait. Obviously, a decent amount of fertilizer goes to the Strait of Hormuz, and also urea, which is one of the um, I guess materials that goes into a lot of fertilizers. Um, but so obviously they're benefiting from the tight supplies because they're not they don't produce in the Middle East. They're, an American company, um, or Canadian, North American, whatever. And, obviously the natural gas, which is another big component in fertilizer. Obviously they have advantages being here in North America as well. So obviously it was kind of a good, uh, Iran like conflict play when it first came out. It's maybe getting a little long in the tooth.
Yeah, so I remember this, and I remember telling you that this was your chance to buy it, right? So like that's why the circles there. I
Yep.
know that. And like you want to know the funny thing is, here was your second chance right here. So it's the same thing, right? Same play.
Yep. I missed
Um,
both of them, to be
so
honest.
so like, what's your third chance to buy it? Look, like if you think this thing is going to continue to be bullish, which this is pretty bullish. This is kind of a scary looking daily right here for the time being. But like if you think that we're going to continue to have disruptions and this thing's going to continue to move up, like your next chance is probably somewhere along, your TK lines yet again. Like now this is very, and it doesn't really mean that much, but I mean this thing is up 87% off of like, like since January, the beginning of the year. I mean, I feel like we are kind of getting long in the tooth on this one a bit in terms of like, um, any chart that looks like this is like to be a little careful of like trying to
Yeah.
chase stuff like
Hard,
this, and
hard to
like, and
buy
and the
something
thing
up
is, like, you can
80%.
see, like, when it comes up here. I mean, this was a 16% pullback, right? Like that's enough to scare a lot of people. Um, and honestly, like kind of like how this current candle is, it's a little bit scary. But you know, you could maybe give you another pullback, and like I think as long as, I mean, just from like structure purposes, as long as you're above like kind of this last opportunity, that's probably okay. Like kind of like an important support zone, I would say, is probably this. And this is just one based off of, again, your prior low with this prior key level. This is like your prior all-time high, right? This is kind of like a region that I would really want to see held. And again, like your TK lines are very bullish. Your Kijun's going to be catching up, coming up into this region as well. So for me, like this is like a really important support if we're going to want to see this thing kind of continue higher for the time being. And like one thing that I can see that could kind of happen here, with kind of like how this looks, is maybe this even comes all the way back down here, and then you kind of like form a bit of a range before a decision, right? Before either like, so this is either like a pretty significant high. I kind of feel like this could be like a significant high getting put in, or again, just kind of like maybe this pulls back, forms a little bit more of a range, and then gives another run to the upside, something like that. Like, if things don't unwind, like we talked about earlier, that type of stuff. Like, would I chase it here? No. It's not financial advice, but this is, I mean, unless you know something that other people don't, which some people have been trading that pretty well these days, certain parties. But I would be a little careful about trying to, get like anything crazy over here. But I do think like a pullback here, if you were to get another move that's similar to this, right, where you get kind of like another pullback, I think like you have decent structure here. I would say like decent, like kind of like support region to kind of like base your invalidation off of. That's what I would say. And I think like as the days progress, like your TK lines are going to catch up to price even more, and maybe give you another potential opportunity here. But yeah, this one is a little scary.
EJT is the next one.
Oh God, you're gonna piss off a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the
don't get me
it's
started on this
I've
one. Why can I not see it? Like, why is it? It's I have too many, so I got to keep adding and re-adding. Okay, this looks awful. This
yeah, it
looks
looks
horrendous. This is
terrible.
awful. And like, are you really
You never you,
surprised? I'm not.
you never buy any Trump scams. I like Trump,
I
but
mean, this is like,
any like financial thing that he is involved with usually doesn't do that well.
okay.
But the reason that I've started looking at this one is, they recently did a
I'm
deal
listening.
with TAE Fusion, which sounds like a scam as it is, right? So I did a little research. It's a fusion company, which, as far as I know, there aren't any other fusion companies. And it's but I looked into it, and they've been doing research on it for 25 years, and the list of investors was pretty impressive, which kind of got me thinking, like, so maybe there is something to it. Google, Chevron, Goldman Sachs, Sumitomo, um, Charles Schwab, a bunch of like pretty big hitters invested in this fusion company that they just, it's kind of like a reverse merger. Instead of them IPOing, they kind of IPO'd through the DJT stock. And it kind of seems to me like DJT stock is going to spin off the Truth Social, which obviously is, doing probably pretty poorly since X came back into the fray. So I think they're going to spin that off and like concentrate on this fusion company. I don't, I have no idea if this is going to work, but if it does,
I can't talk
it's
too much
somewhat
crap.
interesting.
I can't talk too much crap because the last time when we were looking at some kind of hideous charts, they, again, certain ones come to mind like GoPro, and then then I'm like, okay, well, look, here's what I'll say about this chart. It looks awful. You're basically at all-time lows. And it just looks this continues to kind of get worse. And this is kind of like I kind of wonder if this is like a though for Bitcoin, if you actually look at the range we're in right now, it's like, do we like, is this kind of I don't know why this just made me think of Bitcoin, not to get sidetracked, but it's like you're literally come back up, you test your point of control, and then you roll over. So it's like, is this happened to Bitcoin? Anyway, moving on. um as far as like this goes, like there's like a saying, right? Like, what pumps the hardest? Scams, right? So like, I wouldn't be that surprised. I mean, you look at like some of these like prior instances, especially if like there's whatever it might be. It's like, I wouldn't be that surprised to see like this will probably pump again pretty big at some point. Does it ever make a new all-time high? I don't know. I mean, I feel like,
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not endorsing this one. I just think
yeah,
that
no, it's interesting.
it's somewhat interesting,
But if it's
and
like, if there's
it
one
could be a money
guy
pit. Like this
that
whole
can pull
fusion thing
this
could be
off,
a total money pit too. It
yeah.
could
But
just
like,
be
if there's
a
anybody who could pull off something like that by doing some stuff, it's like probably the president. That's it's like pretty powerful guy. Like, maybe he could pull it off. I don't know. He has
yeah.
unlimited,
Well,
tools at his disposal if
it.
he really cares about this thing. But yeah, I mean, geez, from a technical
I mean, no
standpoint,
one is
this looks
giving them
awful.
any credit whatsoever for this fusion technology thing, which
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
surprised by that.
obviously.
But yeah, but it
But
does. What
yeah.
they
So
raised 1.3 billion from all those companies I mentioned
don't
earlier.
get me
And that
started.
doesn't mean anything either. But it's something.
All
Like
right.
some pretty smart people from those companies. So
Two pretty decent
we'll see.
resistances that I will mention right now. Number one, to the upside. I think if you got to push up to 1250, that's probably a tough area to get back above. I mean, what is that? It's probably like a 45% move higher or something like that. But it's about like a rough math. Again, like the resistance to me is like pretty clear. Again, 1250, and then probably your point of control around $17. Like, this Kijin's going to continue working its way down. It's going to be, again, like your last prior high. I mean, this thing is disgusting. It's a terrible chart. And
Yep.
it doesn't mean that so like, as far as looking for supports to the downside, I could sit here and play with this for 10 minutes and try to find some, but I just don't think, I mean, this is a
Yeah,
bad
not worth
looking
it.
chart. This is a bad chart. And it's a
You want to
bad
see another
chart.
bad one?
As long, I mean, yeah, oh God, how many bad charts are we
I
going to
got
see?
I got a couple bad. There's some bad
Ah,
ones in here, but you
jeez.
never
Okay.
know. Uh,
All right, that's true. You never
okay,
know.
the next one is okay. You put that one in.
I'm looking
That's
at the
not the one
list
I
that
was
I
going to.
have. So this is
Yeah.
also
So this
um
is
less
real quick.
worse. Less
Yeah,
worse.
this one is
Like
it's a software distribution platform, and they kind of specialize in like supply chain security, which a lot of people think, I think this got hit with all the AI stuff, because it's a software type of company, and it got kind of thrown out with all of those. But with AI and all these agents and everything coming into play, there's a lot of people that are worried about like cybersecurity and like cyber risks. And this company kind of has some products that deal with that. And they might actually be a decent platform to like resell some of the AI um, LLM like um, products. So, I mean, a lot of these software names are kind of, they've all been kind of left for dead. So it might be kind of a contrarian play.
all right. So for this one, this is kind of how I would look at it. I would look at this as like a developing range, basically. Just gonna do like some rough. Always got to be in my way. This is basically how I would look at this as like a developing range. I think it actually has a pretty good likelihood of of like I do think that this actually is going to be a range. Um, what I would say on this one in terms of an entry is, and this is like there's not much to go off of. I don't actually hate the chart that much at all. Um, I mean, it's much better than the last one that we looked at. I think like this trend line is actually pretty important. Just one thing that I didn't pull was that yeah, it's a lot lower. So isn't that big of a surprise. Um, but I wouldn't mind like seeing something like this where you have, you know, like a move down that maybe runs this low into like this trend line, something like that, or like even a reclaim. Like that to me is like entry, stop loss, target, something like this. So like this doesn't look, this honestly isn't that, this looks night and day compared to the last chart that we looked at, but still obviously like this is a pretty significant move down. You've just had um you know, basically your 382 and a pretty decent rejection off of that. Um kind of like your next level of interest I would say is, maybe you even get like a larger bounce up here. I don't really think so. I think like what's more likely, what just feels more likely just looking at this is for again for like some kind of range to form here. So like what I would say is not that this is like something I would try to short or anything like that myself. But like if you got a run of the, if you got like an opposite of this at your range high first, where it actually came up and and gave you an SFP of the high, that's a short, and then to be looking, and I would be looking for this play. Basically, it's literally the opposite of this. So it's like either side that you get, which you're obviously going to get one of these at some point. Um, that's kind of like how I would look to play that. And like here, I would be a little, again, I do think that like this general area right here, like I would say, like this area is like a really important support. And this is also because for me, like for this trend line, this is also a time based support. Does that make sense? So, like, this is something that I'd want to see over the next couple of quarters. You get too deep into the year, and then, like, if we start to break below range low, then you've already broken this trend. Does that make sense? Then you're like, I mean, like, you could still
Yeah.
kind of like SFP this, sure. And like that would still be a long to me, but like I would prefer that that happens while you're still above this trend line. So that's for like more confluence, right? Um, so like that's kind of the two trade ideas that I would have for this with JFrog or whatever this is. Um, but like in terms of a long, which is the only side of this that I would maybe participate in, this to me would be like not a bad setup. Like this is something that I would be interested in if I saw this. And this range is pretty decent. It's pretty decent size. So it's like decent enough, right? I mean, 44%, like it's decent, you know, like it's worth a shot, I think. Like if I was given that.
Nice. Yeah, you're looking at it. DMRC.
Oh God.
Another
Here's
horrible
another
chart.
terrible chart that I know that you've traded this a ton in the past and have had. This is one that we talked about for like years at this point that you've and like you've done well trading it. Um, this is old now, I
On
think.
digital watermarking, which
So
um
look, I mean,
it's
like the last
base
time that we like talked about or like that I actually looked at this was in 2024. So like for those of you watching, to give you an idea, like this is something that Tig and I have been talking about for literal years at this point. Um, and the thing that like I like about it from a just like a trading standpoint is these insane oscillations. Like these are like insane, like huge price action. So it's like there's opportunity, right? But here, is there a reason why this thing just fell off a cliff, lost your literal like any like potential support you had here, and is dead now? So like, can you like what happened here?
Yeah, so so long story short, they own a bunch of patents in digital watermarking, which they put like a security feature embedded into any kind of format, whether it's TV, CDs, paper money, packaging on products, anything. And historically, they've had hundreds of millions of licensing deals over the years, but their main kind of businesses that they're or sectors that they're looking into, they're trying to replace the barcode. Like the barcode you have on products, right? They're trying to replace that with a digital watermark that is on the whole package. It's supposed to, increase the time that when you check out. It's supposed to help the product uh, for social media and all kinds of reasons, and security, obviously. So they've whenever you're trying to replace something that's embedded, as much as the barcode is, it takes longer than people think. I mean, they've been trying to do this for the last 10 years. So why do I think that it's going to happen sometime soon? Well, they do have deals with some large retailers like Walmart and some of the top 10 retailers, and they've done a bunch of pilots with them. The problem is that the scanners, where you do the checkout, did not have their technology updated into it yet. That's supposed to happen in the next couple of weeks, supposedly. Honeywell and Zebra are the two like main scanner companies, and they do have a past with both of those, and they're both um, basically updating their scanners with Digimarc software. So there could be some good things come out of that over the next year or so. The other one was a recycling deal. So in Europe, they're like crazy about recycling. Um, in France, Belgium, they want to be able to sort their recycling a lot more efficiently because they don't have the oil and all the stuff that goes into plastic. Um, they're in various stages of those deals, and I think that's what happened with the big downturn. Some of the stuff kind of got pushed out, but supposedly by 2030, it's going to be the standard for all of Europe to have to kind of have these type of recycling technologies embedded into the plastic products. So it's kind of a wait until then type of thing. They were hoping it would happen before that, um, but it hasn't. So those are so it's slow moving, you know, uh, technology replacements, and also dealing with governments. It always takes longer than you think. So like that's why you see these huge spikes where like everybody's like, okay, it's happening, and then it doesn't happen, and it takes another year, and then stock goes back down to like $5 or $10. Then it looks like it is going to happen. It goes back up to like 30, 40. It's a small cap. I think it's about $100 million market cap. So be careful, obviously. The float is not extremely big. So like that's why you see the big moves up when things get exciting. Um, so that's kind of where we are
So
with
you
that
ready for
one.
the good, bad, or the ugly? What do you want first? No,
Let's,
I'm
let's
just kidding.
just
So like, look,
what do you think?
for like those of you here right now in VIP, like from trading, okay? Anytime you see like a very clear resistance or support, works both ways. Anytime you see like a super clear, like long-term resistance like this, and you see your breakout, and then it's a failure, right? So to zoom in, failed breakout, like your deviation above your trend line here. What, like, so when you had your failure back in and you got your acceptance, okay, like, let me get rid of this just so it's a little cleaner. Whoops, hold on. That is not the delete button. That is. Okay. So anytime you have kind of your deviation breakout above and then you see your acceptance back below, what did you also have? You had your acceptance back below your macro value area high, right? Like there's like multiple things here telling you, oh boy, this isn't good. And again, long-term resistance, right? Resistance, 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 resistance. Here's your break. You're thinking, oh, here, finally, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. You know, we're going to $100 or whatever. You get your failed breakout, acceptance back below, acceptance back within your macro value, right? Holy smokes, look what happens. All the way down to the other, to where this, building support, it tried to, you see that? So like again, support tried to stop here at your macro value area low. And you had really good confluence too on this, on the flip side of this, you had this trend line, you had your macro value area low. Like you had really, pretty, this 6-month level was sitting right here. Really good reason, which again, stopped here for a month. Really good support until it wasn't. Flip, again, lost that. Rejection, 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 couldn't reclaim. Back above this trend line, couldn't get back into your macro value. And then here you are, like here you are, literally down 70% from like even just like this breakdown. Okay. Beautifully technical chart. That's what I like about this. As ridiculous as this chart looks, your failed breakout and failed support, you have classic support resistance flips, you have everything that I talk about and I teach and have taught for years. It's just like at work, right? Beautiful chart. You have your 1618 expansion here to the downside though, which honestly, like when you see stuff like this, and you're like you like a lot of times like when we're charting stuff that's really volatile, I don't often look at kind of where this level sits just because like it would take a lot to get there a lot of times, right? Like when you're measuring moves that take months or years to do, when you're looking at these levels, it's like you don't really like look at it because like you're so far away from it until you're not. And guess where you're bouncing from? Literally here. So in terms of like a very quick, in terms of like what support do I want to see held? Well, you're at it. You're looking at it right here.
Exactly.
So like this is a level that I think is critical. I would say as long as you're above $4 and you're respecting that level, I don't think that this actually is. I mean, look, that's the problem I have with this is that's literally the only real thing that I see here. Okay. And so again, Ichimoku not been great, and it will never be great in a situation like this where you have a chart that is just in some diabolical range for the most part. But like this is like this is one of the crazier charts you'll see. But guess what? When you start actually trending, which this thing is very clearly trending now, even your resistances are holding up beautifully. So this is your weekly time frame. You cannot get above your weekly tenkin. It's immensely weak. But do I think that this actually is an interesting potential area? Yes. And I think as long as you're above $4, I think that you have a chance. But make no mistake about it, this chart is horrific. And it's trend
They've had
it's
a lot of
very weak,
execution problems, like I
you know.
mentioned, but they've done some stuff to kind of right size the business. Like they were burning cash, and like I guess as of last quarter, they're kind of back to break even, which they think they will be going forward, cash flow positive. Um, so I think like just the base business with the IP that they have, and they do have a recurring business with like the U.S. government. Like their technology is in like the dollar bill, like and a bunch of other countries currencies. So they do have like a base of business that's like it's not great, but it kind of keeps them
Yeah.
going. And the other thing that actually is kind of a catalyst in the near term is is cards, like the cards you get uh, at retail stores, like retail um,
Oh my god.
cards, like gift cards. And they're basically doing security for those because there's like a lot of fraud in the gift card space, and it's a
Yeah.
fairly big industry, and they're getting with like some of the top companies in that space, which could move the needle
So
in the short term.
32% gap down last year, by the way.
Oof,
And it never
oof.
it just died from there. Like I saw that, I was like, "Wow, that's actually really impressive." Um, so like the last thing, look, there's so again, as long as you're above this low, and I would just say $4. It's a nice, even, respectable number, right? Like you start to see a three handle. I mean, it's just probably going to continue to bleed out. But $4, as long as you're kind of above that, I do think like even around here, it's I don't know, it's interesting. But like especially if you get some kind of SFP of this, some kind of very obvious SFP of this, and yeah, that's probably like a pretty like decent long. Um, but as long as you are below your cloud, which look, by the way, ever since you had your failed breakout, you got your acceptance back below. So like step by step, right? Failed breakout, started to trade back below 37. You're like, oh no, this isn't what I want to see. Got your acceptance below your trend. You got your acceptance back into your macro value, which you lost $40. So this is like that's strike two. Bearish TK cross. You start to lose your, you get back below cloud. That's like strike 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then it's game over, right? Um, but I think like, and here's like the worst part though, is you really have, I mean, even from here, you need like a 65% bounce, I would say something like that. About you need like a 65% bounce and close to even like to just like trade above your cloud, like your daily cloud again. Which it could happen. I mean, it certainly could. Like, look at this chart. I mean, like, something happens, like it could happen, but that's asking a lot. Um, I think kind of like what's more likely is again, like, you get some kind of trade, down here, like maybe some kind of SFP, which I love SFPs. I know I say that a lot, but it's true. It's like that's kind of always one that I look for. Um, if you start to trade below this, the low of this month and it's not an SFP, I just don't see any reason why this is not another failed route. Which I mean, dude, like look, off of this level, that was a 71% move. Which by the way, you've almost fully retraced that. But just off of this level that has been here since January 2025, like you came down to it and you had a 70% pump off of that level. But the bad news is you literally retrace the entire thing basically. And from a trending perspective, again, it's like you look like your Tenkin is going to recross. You're going to get your bearish TK recross below cloud. I mean, this is not good. But I would say very, very important support for this chart. Extremely important support. If you see a new low, it's not an SFP. I don't know what to tell you. Like that's then I would,
I I
you know,
I will go out on a limb on this one just because I have kept track of it for so long. I actually know the CFO. Haven't talked to him in like 5 years, but I could call him today. Good guy. Um, this one's gonna come back. That's my
oh, I
call.
don't. Yeah, and I'm not saying
Yeah,
that it's not okay. Like I'm just like I have to treat this as like like just TA,
yeah,
like
but it does
not
look horrible.
nothing else, right?
It
I don't have
looks
any. I don't like
horrible.
just from TA perspective. This looks really bad, but it is at a actually like very interesting region, and for me, a very clearly defined low that I think needs to be held. And again, you can certainly run the low SFP. That's fine. But anyway, this is it's an interesting one. And the thing is, like, it's 70% move in a very short amount of time. Like, it's saying, like, from a trading opportunity perspective, it's there. Like, this thing can move very big. You know, you have very big snapbacks, just like you did here. But ultimately, like, literally doesn't change the picture at all. So this is like high risk trading, but interesting. I know Tick says he needs to switch his phone a little bit. It's been about an hour. So I think like what we should do is maybe I can cover a couple other things, um, and let Tig do what he's got to do. But you know, I'm trying to think off the top of my head real quick, like what I should cover, if anything else. I mean, it's been an hour. Uh,
First solar, the
what?
solar stock, the solar stock, First Solar.
Okay, I'll look at it.
It's a good one.
Which just literally is Tig, remember like we were saying, like I wanted to look at solar stocks the other day. Yeah, okay, well, like I can tell you right away, bearish. But you are coming into your golden pocket, which is like, so again, these are the levels that we were looking at the last time that whenever that was, and it wasn't that long ago. But we are getting to that 618. So I do think that this I love again, like I love looking for golden pocket bounces, and we are very close to it. Um, the trend though is bearish, and you are obviously like, it's like a counter trend trade, but could maybe put in like a nice structural low here. I do like that. Anyway, I'm gonna take a stab anywhere. A lot of times it's usually gonna be around here. I'll tell you one thing that I don't like is seeing this big gap right here. Gap to the down. I don't really love that. There's actually two. So there's two gaps. Um, but wow. Yeah. Trying to think, when was the last time we did this? I feel like it was like back here, like before this gap down. Not 100% sure. Obviously look at like a ton of charts all the time. But yeah, bearish trend, bearish. Make no mistake about it. Very bearish. You can't even get a daily close above your Tankin here. Like this is bearish, but I do think you are coming into like a pretty important level. Like I would be kind of curious, kind of like what your uptrend value would be. It's actually lower. And here, like this is interesting. So here's your uptrend value area high that I'll just mark this. So it's actually uptrend value area high. You can see kind of like once you lose it, becomes like pretty significant resistance, and you haven't been able to break back above 200, right? So like your uptrend value area high, your next support, your point of control in terms of looking at your volume on this rise, which is also the same rise we're measuring in fib terms, right? So that's why, like, to me, this is irrelevant and important, is your point of control is actually below here at 166. But you do have, again, looking at volume, you're kind of like in like the last area here of like, like there is some volume support, I would say. Your bigger, larger volume support is obviously lower at 166, but there is a bit more like volume support here. So yeah, First Solar, yeah, I don't know. I don't like, again, I always like to look at golden pockets. and especially like this one has like pretty nice structure in terms of like a clean move up, a clean move down. Like a lot of times, obviously it's not perfect, it's not every time. But like when you have kind of like clean structure like this, your golden pocket does a lot of times offer like a really nice bounce off of that. So I don't hate that. But I do think like if you go lower, you have your point of control sitting at 166, 167, somewhere around that region. But for me, if we lose this golden pocket, I'm looking at this green region down here. And again, big reason why. I already marked it off. Um, so like I don't need to double do my analysis there. Like I already know like this is definitely a level of interest for me. Which even here, like funny enough, right? Like when you lost this range, kind of like this range that we're kind of looking at developing, it's like what's your resistance? Literally the underside of this red box, and just moving lower. So I do think like you have a chance for a bounce here, and it could be a nice bounce. It could be like a decent bounce. But ultimately, especially like as things kind of sit right now, it's like to me that's it kind of has a lot to prove. I don't hate like an attempt here though, at all. Like I like setups like this typically, but it's just again you have gap down, and by the way, on these two gap downs you have continuation. That's weak. That's weak. Like so, just be careful. But yeah, for solar, good chart. Well, good chart to cover. Again, very technical, like very, very. I love charts like that.
And on a high time frame, it's looking much better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and that's true. I mean, we could look. Like, I would be curious. Like, we could. Um. So, like this, I would probably turn this off, and yeah, you kind of like this like larger range at play. Um. Yeah. Okay. So like here's a good example. On why I look for golden pockets. Okay, like why I talk about them. And you guys are probably sick of hearing me talk about it, but there it is. Okay, and this is exactly like what I would like. I hate saying that because it's true though. But you literally have your low, you have your high, you have your golden pocket, right? And look at the rally. And guess what? All that was a rally, but it was a 34% move. Like that's significant. Right off of your golden pocket and a nice move higher. Ultimately, they'll resolve lower, right? You're coming into that same similar level. Like you're at a similar level, right? The thing that I would say is that, if we go back to like a daily, is like I was just kind of curious like how this looked back here. It actually like went above even. But like what I would say and like how I would play this is like again, why I like golden pockets. But for me, I would be more like, if it does come here and bounce, I would be looking here really in terms of like a target. So like, you know, do you go back to now again, this is still resistance at 200 and I would definitely have an alert set here. I would probably target a bit larger move though. And like I would want to see where like the low is within this box, right? To kind of like line up. And I can already tell you that like something that's kind of like close to lining up is like your 382, right? So like your 382, I don't know again, this is assuming that you get a bounce off of this golden pocket. You might not. You might just go right through it. You could have another gap down and who knows. But I'm just saying like if you do get a bounce within this region, which I think is probable. It's like it's I think it has a decent chance. It's like I would be looking back up at kind of like this red zone, and again 382. You got your pivot. It would be somewhere in this region where I'd be like, okay, like this is probably if I did play this and got a bounce up into here, absolutely for me it would be a take profit one at minimum, and then probably trail a stop up something like that. Because overall, again, like the trend, like this trend is bearish, right? So does it make sense? But like it's funny though, like perfect, the last time you had a clean move up and down, it bounced off of your golden pocket. You got there was it 34% or something like that. I said this is another one where you have again a clean move up, a clean move down, um, and you're kind of like coming into again that important like Fibonacci support that you want to see held. So good chart. I think in an
Yeah, I
hour.
like that one too. I did a little bit of work on First Solar recently. Um, they're not the most efficient. Obviously the Chinese players are their technology is better, but they do. First Solar does have an advantage with the how long they last, like the durability of their panels, which is what the power companies like. So like for the longer term solar projects from like the power companies in the U.S., um, you know, First Solar is like one of their go-tos. And so that's good. And you have the tariff stuff kind of helping you out in the U.S. at least, in the U.S. market. So it's interesting. I never pulled the trigger on it, but if it goes lower, I would be interested in it a lot more.
I was looking at kind of like, so we had a little bit of a move up. The last 30 minutes, a little bit. I was just curious, like how the indices were doing. Um, I'm probably gonna wrap this up here. It's been hour, 10 minutes, something like that. And I don't want to make this kind of one of those all-in-one videos where it's 3 hours long, 2 hours, 3 hours long, and then like, it's like a pain to even get through. So I think what I'll probably do is do a separate stream or a separate recording or something that covers crypto because I do like it is something that I want to talk about. It's just I don't think I want to talk about it right now just because again the video is an hour 10 minutes long, something like that. I want to make it like too much for people to kind of digest, but I do think it's important to go over. But I'll say this for very simple terms, okay? Is Bitcoin likely to move higher if the rest of the markets are looking this bad? Like probably not, right? Like I guess probably not. Um, so that's kind of like my thoughts into this. I think as long as I mean, look, as long as you're below. I mean, I don't even know where we are right now. Let's take a look. Yeah, we're at 66. Like as long as you're below like 68, 69K, something like that, it's just it's likely the longer that we spend down at these levels too, I do think that we ultimately resolve lower, or at least at least like that initial thesis that I've had, and I haven't changed my mind. Of seeing lower on Bitcoin, like I want to see at least that 60K swept at a minimum, right? Like I got to see that at a minimum, and I think that it's pretty probable that we'll see that whether it's this week or next week or something. And again, like I think for me, it heavily ties into kind of like the whole US, Iran, Israel thing and kind of like what happens continues to unfold, how that impacts the energy markets. Like if this continues to at least remain the same, you pray it doesn't get worse. Um, but again, if there's no material improvement there, like you're unlikely to see too much too much like change in what we've already been seeing across markets. If anything, we expect like it's likely that it gets worse, right? So on Bitcoin, that's my quick 2-minute analysis without like actually like getting into the charts because I know the second I click on that I'm going to change my mind and it'll be another 20 minutes. But so I will save that for another video, and I'm gonna do it. I need to do it before I leave, because again, when I go to Asia, I don't know like geez, I don't know how much how easy it's gonna be for me to like do that stuff over there. Um, but anyway, yeah, I'd say Bitcoin for those of you who are range trading, you see your point of control. As long as you're below there, um, I just think that the odds of us resolving lower are higher than not. Obviously, it doesn't have to. Anything can happen in trading, but it just feels like we're closer to that than we are moving significantly higher. So anyway, I'd say we take that day by day. You'll hear a lot more of my analysis in that video when I cover it. And, you know, basically, yeah. If you guys have any questions before I leave, so I don't make this into a 2-hour video. We good? Thanks for stopping by today, though, you guys that came in here. And yeah, we'll I'll do that separate crypto video later today. And I'm trying to think, is anything else? We're good. Tig, we're good. The
Yeah,
rest
man.
of the rest of the stocks that we didn't get to, which I know you always have a list of like 70. So like there's never gonna be like a shortage of content, you know. But I think like trying to keep the videos like digestible, like even an hour is a long time for a lot of people. But you know, the point is like we should probably have more of these more frequently, and just there's a lot going on. So anyway, I always end my videos with trade safe out there. I have for years and years at this point, and I'm really telling you guys who made it to the end of this video today to please trade safe, because this is like one of those, you know, it's one of those times where like you're you know, a lot of people are on edge. A lot of people are kind of like looking at their portfolio, trying to figure out like, you know, how they're going to manage it or you know, manage it. And I'll just say like, be careful. So trade safe. See you on the next one.
Thank you.
Later, guys.